at Christmas we are buying more, we're getting more packaging into our homes, and we're traveling more by air. But the thing is, as you say, the Christmas dinner is a beacon or a highlight of the year. It's a meal we want to be able to be popular or splurge about. So it's one of those things that we actually want to be able to celebrate and consume a little bit differently. And that means the Christmas dinner is typically 2 to 3 times more environmentally impactful than a standard weekday meal. And there's a couple of things we can do about that. For instance, we could change from roasting our piece of meat in the oven to slow cooking it, and that'll reduce the environmental impact of just the cooking process itself by about 70%. Because the thing what many consumers don't realize is that it's not just environmental impact down the supply chain, but the things you can do in your home can have massive environmental impacts and your carbon footprint. So by changing how you do your cooking, you can actually therefore change your own household's carbon footprint. And the Christmas meal is one of those, because you're doing all the oven roasting, that has a very large environmental impact.
And what Christmas dinner do you have yourself?
So I've got Danish heritage. So at the moment we are doing half a Christmas Eve pork loin, which is much lower environmental impact than, say, a beef or lamb-based Christmas dinner, and also a lot of vegetables. Because the other thing you could do is, of course, increase your amount of EU-grown vegetables, because we do produce some of the most amazing high-quality fruits and vegetables in the EU, and have bigger portions of those in a sustainably cooked manner. So maybe steam them or microwave your vegetables rather than cooking them on hobs and things like that. And by having bigger portions of vegetables, you can actually have a smaller environmental impact because you're offsetting the amount of meat you're having there. So I have a very Danish style meal, but this applies to across all EU-based Christmas meal traditions. And of course, say if you're going for fish, like some of the Polish traditions are, it's a much lower impact again, because fish is lower than other, say, ruminant animal environmental impacts, especially if it's being farmed via aquaculture.
Fish for Christmas. Interesting thought. There's all sorts of other things apparently we're getting wrong here. I mean, far too much waste in terms of whether it's food or wrapping paper, Christmas cards, jumpers. People will wear it once a year and then it just gets stuck in a cupboard. And apparently lots of jumpers are full of plastic, Christmas trees as well. The message here, I mean, Christmas is supposed to be about indulging, about being able to relax just once a year, reuniting with your families. This message is being spoiled, isn't it?
Well, let's say it's not being spoiled, but we've got to highlight that we are in the middle of unprecedented climate change. And one of the things we can do as an individual consumer is to change our consumption pattern. And that doesn't mean we're not consuming well or enjoying ourselves. We've got to change what we're doing. And one of the big things, as you said there, is waste. And think about food waste for a second. 20% of all food in the EU is not eaten. It doesn't see a human stomach. It just gets thrown out. And that's especially true at Christmas, where we have very big portion sizes. And as you said, again, we have packaging. And the report from Hubbub shows that people are wearing a Christmas jumper once a year. And it's brilliant if they then wear that again and again for a couple of Christmases, just such as this one. It's a fun, festive Christmas jumper that I've worn for 3 or 4 years now. That means the environmental footprint is much lower for a long-term thing. And I'm sure with the Christmas trees as well, if you use a plastic Christmas tree for more than 10 years, you actually have a net zero carbon impact compared to if you have a self-grown Christmas tree. And the question then is, of course, if you compost the Christmas tree versus throwing it into the municipal waste where it might get incinerated, which produces a much worse carbon impact. So there's lots of things here. And I guess the way of saying this is that at Christmas time, we should be thinking about ourselves, but also highlighting there are things that you can do to help the planet as well.